to talk about sharing with you how do we manage it all and where does it all come from, right? And we might be different religious faiths and affiliations, but I want to make the point of saying you need a way to do it and to make it through. So I'm going to pass the mic to Aracelis and then to Kathy and just share a little bit. My story is that I've been single all of my life. And to the point where my younger sister Teresia wanted me to meet someone and maybe you should do something, whatever her thought was. And I've lived a lot of different places. I was a member of First Cathedral as of August of '92. And I always had this friend I was fixed up with, actually by Pat Miser. Yeah. Pat Miser said that this man needed me. And we met after a Susie Komen breast cancer fundraising dinner. And it turned out that he was the Howie Dickinman, basketball coach. I'd never even heard of the man before. And so, to make a long story short, I want to share that we were friends for a long time, and eventually he realized whatever he thought and felt was real and true. And so we decided it was time. And so I got married in May of 2018 at 52 years old. Awesome. And I know sometimes as women, if we're single, we're wondering, how do we meet the right person? And I have to be honest with you, I've traveled the world. I've had a great life. I never thought I was gonna get married. I never thought I was gonna have children. And so it was a surprise for me for the reality of my life to be connected with a man who loves me, who gets me, right? Because I'm just not your ordinary woman. Okay, mommy. So I'm sharing all that to say, because of Howard, I'm able to do and be me. And that includes being a minister here at First Cathedral. I am involved in schools as a director of financial aid. I've also been involved in mission. But it just allows me to just be me. And I wanted to share that story. I have so many other parts of it as a middle child of 7. But walking daily in life and having the courage to be you, to be authentically you, is not easy. And I thank God for the friends, for the people I've met along the way who encourage me to be authentic and want to be authentic. And this panel is on spiritual courage.
Thank you, Trita. My name is Aracelis Vasquez Hay, and it's such an honor to be here. I think I've shared it earlier, but I keep sharing that this is her birthing experience, and I would not have missed this. We spent a lot of time dreaming God's dreams for our lives and how they will impact the lives of others, because I've learned that on the other side there are many waiting. And today many of us were waiting for this moment. And thank you for sharing your friends with us, those who have influenced and impacted your life. And it's all about courage. It's about stepping out in faith and believing in you when others may have talked, or maybe at times we don't believe in ourselves. And I want to share, as she shared earlier, we went to school together, and it was a second career for me. Prior to that, I served as a multicultural educator at Connecticut College. My background was in higher education administration. So for many, I thought that I was going to continue on in the road of administration within the college environment, becoming the vice president of student affairs, all that fun stuff. And it was at working with students and being with them in their need for seeking purpose and meaning, that I realized that I too was in that place of understanding that I was been running away from my own call. And I remember at the time, the dean of multicultural affairs came to me and said, "Hey, I want to train you for my position." I'm like, "I don't want it." And I knew that and I thought at one point I did. So it was interesting. I'm like, I don't want it. And I didn't want that. I said, I want to be like, if I become a dean, I would love to be a dean at for religious and spiritual life, really get into that world within the college environment, the academy. And she shared with me that I needed to go and get a divinity or degree. And I'm like, I already have a master's. I was thinking on doctoral work. And anyways, long story short, I end up at Yale Divinity School. And I have to say, the first day I went, and I'm walking around, I see Trita and her fly mama and sisters. They were the first people I met, and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this. God is so good, because they're so amazing. And God ordains these moments. But I shared that, again, I wanted to go on, and I thought I knew what I wanted. I would be 40 next year, and I've always been goal-oriented, always been driven in my own world, creative, artsy. I got married at 32 years old, and in my culture, I'm Puerto Rican. I grew up with many people. Well, in my 20s, they kept asking, when am I going to get married? Why don't I have children? Then when I did get married, are you going to have kids right away? And we purposely waited. I wanted to know my husband, get to know him, enjoy him, travel, be spontaneous. So I had kids a little later. I'm 39, and I just had my second child, and that's it. Who's back there. His name is Kairos Rubin. He was born on the 4th of July. So culturally, I'm old to bear kids, okay? But it's interesting that in my environments with my friends who are educated and who are professionals, we're seeing more of that, But I shared that because I've worn a lot of hats, and one of them is being a pastor. And being a pastor is very challenging because you're constantly having to give up on you. That's what they say. You got to care for others. You got to care for others. And I believe that those who came before me did not do a good job in modeling self-care. And I'm also a woman. So in many worlds, we don't exist, Like, what do you mean you're a woman, you're an ordained minister? So I'm constantly having to challenge others because it is a male-driven world, and if I need a break or if I need to nurse my child, I'm going to do that. But that takes courage. I have been in meetings where and it's funny because I have felt from the Spirit, you need to take him. You need to take your baby and do not apologize. That's hard. I mean, it's nice for me to say, but I've had to put myself in that position to also educate those around me. I was sharing with someone earlier that this past Kairos was 2 months, and I had to travel to teach at Columbia Theological over in Decatur, Georgia, a course. And while I was there, I took my son, my mother-in-law flew with me, and then there were a bunch of pastors, and they got to meet him during dinner, and during the last session, they said, I need you to bring him. And I'm like, I can't, they're paying me to do this, and I need you to bring him. And what happened was that moment, they were seeing me manage what I consider was chaos in my own world, trying to balance everything, but they were able to see that and say, many of them regretted not having the opportunity to do that when they had children. They were like, I thought my wife could do this only. And I now see that I could have brought my wife, my children with me to these type of gatherings, and I missed out. And I share that because, again, the hats that we wear are very, in many ways, I've learned that they have been positioned and given to us, but there are also seasons. And we see it in the Word, in Scripture, there are seasons. And this past year, while I was pregnant, I was offered the job that I always thought I wanted, which was, again, being a dean at an institution, and that's why I went to divinity school. And I was pregnant. And honestly, I didn't want it. I didn't want to work 9 to 5. I did not want to deal with the bureaucracy of an institution. I knew, but at the same time, I was challenging and I'm fighting with myself, thinking this is what you always wanted. This is why you went to school. And then also, I started thinking like, oh my God, I'm becoming one of those women that is all about their children and they're gonna stop everything. That's not who I am. Like, I was balanced. I was like, it's truly, there was a warfare happening, and truly, focusing on purpose, but also understanding that there are seasons. And I thought that if I was to choose my family first, would I be respected? Also, wearing this hat of mother, loving what it meant, but also the challenge that it brought. And understanding and figuring out my call and my ministry in all of it. Because I'm also I'm an associate pastor, it's a team of us. But also, what does that look like in my context, right? So it was challenging. And for me, I've always been the first. And it feels like God has always positioned me to be the first in different places to kind of educate others, and I'm tired of doing that. Sometimes I'm like, Lord, can I just go somewhere where the system has already been in place and everybody gets it? Why do I have to be the first pastor pregnant and having to talk about being like on maternity leave, to a congregation? All of that, it gets tiresome. But I've learned that there are seasons. And how do I balance that? I've learned to accept my reality and enjoy my reality. My nephew last week, we were with him, the firstborn, and I have sisters only, so their kids are my kids, and I'm the last one to have children. So my oldest nephew graduated from the United States Marine Corps, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, I remember you were my baby. And it goes so fast, and everybody keeps telling me, enjoy them now, enjoy them now, enjoy them now. So I'm learning to do that. And I'm learning to also, my devotional time, just breathe and enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey and enjoy the fact that, these are moments that are not only for me as a mom, but also for my kids. But they're also helping raising me to become the next woman in my chapter. I have a 3-year-old daughter who, she's challenges me every day because she reminds me of me, and I've learned that she's learning from me sometimes, but it's amazing how I'm growing with her, and that's very humbling. So I'm gonna stop here, but truly, I guess for me, it's just seasons matter. Seasons matter, and accepting those seasons.
Thank you. My name is Reverend Kathy Williamson, and I'm an associate pastor at Mount Airy Baptist Church in Bridgeport, Connecticut. For me, spiritual courage is being vulnerable and then doing it anyway. Recognizing the vulnerability and doing it anyway. One of my sister friends out of Atlanta, she wrote a book, Too Heavy a Burden, The Yoke, that women bear. It's Dr. Shanika Walker Barnes. And that's it. We're praised for hanging in there, and we can have a death in a family and we go right back to church, and they're like, oh, you made it, we're just so thankful that you're here, and they celebrate us when no matter how ill we are, and we push our way anyway, and we do that, and we're celebrated, and no one ever gives us permission to say, no, take time out for yourself. So in the church, for me, I think it's important that women recognize their vulnerabilities and take that time out for themselves anyway. I am a second career professional. I worked for 23 years with the state of Connecticut Judicial Branch. I was the superintendent of the Bridgeport Juvenile Detention Center, where I retired, and following retirement, I had a family. Had my daughter, and I went back to school. My first master's degree is in counseling, so I did a lot of counseling work, working with women and families, working with youth, inner city youth, at-risk teenagers, a lot of girls that were, on the street. So that's kind of where my career started and ended. However, after retirement, I've always had a call to ministry. Always felt that, God had a place for me in the church, and I was an associate at another church for about 20 years, working in youth ministry. But what I found is that people will let you keep going, and they will, pat you on the back and tell you what a great job you're doing. And I had to take a moment. I'm like, what is the reward? What is the reward? You're getting something out of this. And then when I had to look at it, that's what it was. People patting you on the back, yeah, great job. They don't care that you just worked, 8 hours on a job, and then you've done 5 hours at the church, and you've done that 6 days straight. And you smile and you keep going.